The Mediterranean, 2nd century A.D. The Roman Empire is now the greatest power in the known world. As Rome's colossal strength grew, Romans felt the need to endow themselves with noble and heroic origins, and they turned to Greece for this endowment, which many Romans believed was the land of their forefathers. According to legend, it was the Trojan hero Aeneas who landed here at the mouth of the Tiber, the sacred river of Rome, and founded Roman culture. Julius Caesar himself professed to be the direct descendant of Ascanius, the son of Aeneas. Emperor Hadrian admired Greek culture so much that he considered his dedication of the Temple of Zeus at Olympia among the high points of his life. On this journey, we will travel to Greece, as many Romans did, to uncover what they loved about their Greek heritage. We will use illuminating knowledge from the 2,000-year-old scrolls of geographer and historian Pausanias to guide us on this pilgrimage into history. Travelers on their way to Greece would have left Rome on the Appian Way, one of the main thoroughfares in and out of the city. Though the roads look a bit rough today, back then they were smooth and well maintained, thanks to public companies responsible for their maintenance. In fact, Rome built an intricate system of 75,000 miles of roads, which crisscrossed the entire empire and helped Rome dominate the rest of the world. At Brindisi in the south of Italy, travelers would board ships for the oftentimes hazardous crossing to Greece. The discovery of countless remains of Roman ships makes it clear just how dangerous the crossing was. On ships like this one, known as an honoraria, passengers were assigned to cabins based on their rank. If you were poor, you might be relegated to the hold, among barrels, amphorae, and even circus animals. At times, rather than attempt the long trip to Greece straight away, ship's captains would take a shorter route to Valona, in what is now Albania. From there, they would continue with a smaller ship, sailing at slower speeds and staying close to the shore. The ship would stop off at Corfu and Cephalonia, then continue on until it reached the Gulf of Corinth and the land of their forefathers. The city of Corinth sits on an isthmus that connects the Peloponnesus to the mainland. Today, a modern canal cuts across the isthmus, connecting the Ionian Sea to the Aegean. But in ancient times, travelers and merchants figured out their own shortcut from one sea to the next. The marks left on these paving stones showed that chariot wheels passed along this road for centuries. Findings have revealed that this road was actually a paved causeway used to draw entire ships across the isthmus on rollers. This way, sailors and cargoes could slice 200 stormy miles off their passage around the entire Peloponnesian Peninsula, an ingenious solution to an ancient maritime problem. The splendors of Greek antiquity in Corinth disappeared in 146 BC, when the city was destroyed for having led a revolt against Roman imperialism. In 44 BC, however, Julius Caesar had the city rebuilt in Roman style, equipping it with every luxury and comfort, and furthering its reputation as a trading and transportation center. Thanks to the discovery of several finds bearing bilingual Latin-Greek inscriptions, we know that Corinth was a lively and cosmopolitan city, and as Homer defined it, most opulent. Excavations and relief surveys carried out by various archaeological schools over the centuries have confirmed this. At the port of Lekeion, there was an avenue almost 2,000 feet long known as the Lekeo, which led to the city. The avenue was flanked by a majestic portico formed by hundreds of columns adorned with the classic Corinthian capital. At the end of the Lekeo, there were these three arches, known as the propylaeum. These led directly onto the agora. The square here was one of the biggest and most opulent in the empire, measuring 650 feet by 328 feet. Even today, this would rank as one of the largest squares in the world. Beautifully crafted buildings lined the agora. One of the most fascinating is the one with the facade of the prisoners. Here are the ruins of the building, which took its name from the statues of prisoners adorning the columns, now on display in the local museum. The warriors that had been captured by the Romans were fearsome Parthians, immortalized here in all their might. The commercial part of the square was made up of hundreds of workshops and stores, crammed with every type of merchandise. In particular, typically Greek products, such as the celebrated Corinthian pottery, in its distinctive shades of red and black. The most important public buildings also looked out over the square and held the offices of the duumvirs, the two magistrates, the equivalent of our modern mayors, who administered the city. And it is here that we would see the skillful carving of the stonemasons who originated the Corinthian capital, a modern floral design, a sort of Art Nouveau of the time. A beautiful basilica was situated on the eastern side of the square. People discussed business deals here, held trials, and performed public functions. Many gods were worshipped in Corinth, and these temples were dedicated to them. There would have been a pantheon dedicated to all of the gods, along with temples for Venus, Hercules, Neptune, and those of Apollo and Mercury. The square was also the place where the authorities communicated with the people. Orators of every language and religion got up on this marble platform known as the bema, which was erected especially for holding assemblies and public speeches. It is believed that St. Paul preached his letters to the Corinthians, his values of Christianity, from this spot in the 1st century AD, probably in the presence of the proconsul Gallius, the highest Roman authority in the Greek province, of which Corinth was the capital. Here Christianity was largely tolerated and made numerous converts thanks to St. Paul. Ancient Corinth contained many other monuments which are now hidden under the modern city. When excavating around this military fortification, which was built in the Middle Ages on a hill known as the Acrocorinth, archaeologists found the remains of an ancient building. The building is believed to have been a place for hierogamy, or sacral prostitution, which was well known and widely practiced here. More than 1,000 priestesses of Venus, known as hieradules, lived here. They were so sought after and expensive that the saying, "It is not given to every man to go to Corinth," was coined especially in their honor. Not far from Corinth, another remarkable discovery showed a long snake coiled around a staff, held by a character not in the least intimidated by the reptile. The snake is not just an artist's whim. Archaeologists know that in ancient art, every mark has a particular significance. In fact, this character is Asclepius, Aesculapius to the Romans, the god of medicine for both peoples. Even today, the coiled snake is still the universal symbol of pharmacies and hospitals. The worship of Asclepius took place at one of the great cities of ancient Greece, Epidaurus, where it is said the god was born. His sanctuary there was a place of healing, within which it was actually forbidden to die. Excavations from the place where the statue of the god was unearthed have revealed this strange circular building known as a tolos. Snakes born in Epidaurus, descendants of the original serpent, the numerous hospitals of the ancient world could not have functioned. The presence of the god was essential for performing the rite of healing. The sick were laid on the floor of the temple and left to spend the night there, during which they would be cured by the god's touch. These kinds of esoteric and religious beliefs became part of the origins of modern medical science. A good ancient doctor would not stop there, however. He would intervene with more human means. Archaeologists have unearthed some extraordinary surgical instruments in Epidaurus. It became clear that in addition to magic, the Greeks were perhaps the first people in the world to use surgery. Epidaurus was indeed a highly organized and fully equipped healing center, a city sanctuary where the care of the body was a priority. This can be seen in the thermal baths, fountains, gyms, and the stadium where many types of sport were played. The Greeks were the first to understand that pure physical activity is a source of well-being. Masks like this one are often found in Greek archaeological sites, but in Epidaurus they were found in surprisingly large quantities. The finds were immediately linked to the possible presence of a theater. At the base of a hill, the discovery of steps covered in thick vegetation led experts to believe that an enormous and exceptional construction could lie beneath. Excavations gradually revealed 55 rows of seats of what turned out to be a magnificent fan-shaped theater, perfectly conserved since the 4th century BC, the work of Polykleitos the Younger. The grandiose construction has earned international acclaim, not just for its remarkable capacity of 12,000 seats, but more for its acoustics, which are considered perfect, the very best. In fact, they've never been bettered in an outdoor theater. Here you could watch the great Greek tragedies of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, performed perhaps for the first time. You could hear the poetry of the ancients and contemplate the presence of the gods and their relationships to human struggle. The theater experience was fully encompassing. More than one play would be performed. The day was long, and the crowd was vociferous. There was often incessant yelling and whistling. Actors had to resort to professional tricks to make themselves heard over the din of the audience. They used masks, gestured eloquently with their arms, pitched their voices unnaturally, and shouted out their lines. Truly defining moments for the term theatrical. The transition from pagan god worship to Christianity in ancient times became evident when archaeologists digging in another area of the Peloponnese discovered a Christian cross set over the ruins of a Greek building that was datable to about the 5th century BC. The building was transformed into a basilica around the 4th century AD, when Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. One of Phidias's greatest masterpieces was contained within, the chryselephantine statue of Zeus, one of the 7 wonders of the world. Pausanias described it like this: "The god sat on a throne of gold and ivory. On his head he bore a crown that imitates the branches of an olive tree. In his right hand the god holds a Nike, which is also in gold and ivory. In his left hand the god holds a scepter adorned with every type of metal, and the bird perched on the scepter is an eagle. His sandals were also made of gold, as were his garments. The throne is adorned with gold and precious stones, as well as ebony and ivory." According to legend, when the statue was completed, Phidias asked the god for a sign that his work was pleasing to him. Immediately, a bolt of lightning struck. Now it seems clear why Phidias had such an enormous workshop. The immense statue was actually carved there and then transported to the temple. Though the Greeks held their gods in high esteem, the Greeks also revered the beauty and the capability of the human body itself. And it was here, at Olympia, in 776 BC, near the Temple of Zeus, that the Greeks founded the Olympics, athletic competitions to be held in his honor and celebrated every 4 years. The Olympiad was a sacred truce during which the various city-states would suspend all hostilities for 1 week and seek a solution to their conflicts through the guidance of Zeus. People would come from far and wide to witness these supreme tests of man's physical prowess. Objects and written records show that the ancient sports were exclusively individual. There was a variety of athletic competitions, such as discus throwing, wrestling, chariot races, boxing, and running, which, just as it is today, was the queen of all competitions. The city of Olympia exalted not only sports, but the highest values of ancient Greece. Its streets and buildings were decorated with outstanding friezes and adorned with more than 3,000 statues. Some of these masterpieces are in the local museum, such as this Hermes, one of the most precious statues in the world, sculpted by the great artist Praxiteles. From fragments that have been found, archaeologists have managed to reconstruct metopes from the 5th century BC, which came from the Temple of Zeus. Their patient work has restored the mythical figure of Heracles, Hercules to the Romans, who stood for strength and courage, and who laid down the rules for sports. This is the west pediment of the Temple of Zeus. It tells the story of the mythological struggle between the Lapithae and the Centaurs, who were half man and half horse. It symbolizes the triumph of human culture over animal barbarism. The east pediment portrays the story of Pelops, founder of the Olympic Games, who succeeded in defeating the cruel king Oenomaus in a chariot race, and in reward received his daughter, the beautiful Hippodamia. The Olympic Games today still carry on the flame of bringing diverse nations together in a display of man's physical potential and, in a way, helping to resolve differences. The words of Pausanias summarize the powerful influence of the Greek Olympiad. There are many other things to see among the Greeks, and many marvelous things to hear, but nothing is more divine than Olympic contests. Perhaps it is this kind of divinity, of man at his physical best, of men come together in peace, that the Romans found ennobling. Certainly, along with the gods and heroes and the mythology that accompanied them, it was the endowment the Romans were looking for.